Hey all, and welcome to the next lecture in practical packet analysis. And here we're going to talk about filtering packets. Now, if you've been watching all the videos up until this point, you know this is one we've been alluding to for a while. We've used a lot of different filters in a lot of different places for lots of different use cases. And it's certainly a very important part of becoming good at packet analysis for a variety of reasons. And we're going to cover a lot of those here. Now, to do that, we're going to cover the two main types of filters that you'll apply. The first of these are Berkeley packet filters, or BPFs. Then we'll look at Wireshark's display filters, which are based upon Wireshark's protocol dissectors. And then we'll talk about a bunch of different filtering scenarios. We'll go through a whole bunch of different things. I'll show you, as we're doing these explanations, a lot of different filters. And then towards the end, I'll give a bunch of specific scenarios that are actually not just for teaching purposes, but actually practical things that you might use when you're going about the business of filtering down packet captures. Now, we've already discussed how important it is to ask the right questions when you're performing analysis. And filtering comes into play really with a lot of the questions you're going to ask, especially in the purpose of seeking answers, right? So you ask a question, you come with some sort of hypothesis, and then you have to retrieve the data that's necessary to provide an answer. So you might say, show me all of the DNS packets in a capture, and so that's a use case for a filter. Or you might say, show me all the DNS packets that use TCP, which is a very specific use case where DNS will sometimes use TCP rather than UDP. Maybe you want to see only TCP reset packets, so you want to see reset connections. Maybe that's of interest to your investigation. Or maybe packets with odd values in the 9th byte. That's getting rather specific, but that's another use case for filtering. Or maybe we're talking application layer and you just want to see HTTP GET requests. These are all pretty darn common things that you're going to be looking for in standard scenarios, whether for troubleshooting general network issues, troubleshooting latency, or performing security investigations. Some of these you'll use more than others, but these are all realistic use cases for packet filtering, which is one of the reasons why we're going to spend so much time on it, and we have a dedicated module to it here. Before we get going here, I want to leave you or lead you into this section with a quote that I think is really pertinent for this section. And the quote says that the packets never lie, but as traffic volumes increase, you end up with 1 trillion truths. And this quote is not only great by itself, but it's also great in that it was said by Gerald Combs, who's the creator of Wireshark. He's the original developer and still maintains the project today. And what he's saying here is that, you know, we use the phrase often that packets never lie, because ultimately, if it's traversing the network, it's kind of a source of truth, right? It's definitely being communicated from one host to another. Certainly things can be spoofed, but for the most part, the packets really don't lie. The problem, however, isn't the search for truth. The problem is that there are so many truths. Packet data grows tremendously. Even just visiting a web page, as you've seen in some of the examples we've already worked, just going to ESPN.com or CNN.com or something like that, you're generating hundreds and often thousands of packets for very simple actions. So if you're troubleshooting a single host and you're just looking at web browsing, you're still seeing thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of packets. If you're troubleshooting a security scenario where you're analyzing packets from a link that's monitoring an entire network segment, you're talking about trillions of packets, and it's just an overwhelming thing. So that's why packet filtering is so important, is because we have so many truths that we have to get down to just the ones we need. We're asking questions and we need to get very, very specific answers. There's pretty good research out there now that shows that a lot of time can be wasted filtering through data. Packet capture data is really useful, it's really valuable, but only if you can be efficient in how you go about finding and retrieving that data. It's not efficient for anyone to try to analyze a 4 gigabyte packet capture just by scrolling through it or even using Wireshark statistical features alone. You have to be able to focus in on specific portions of the capture, whether specific conversations, specific protocols, certain protocol anomalies, and so on. You have to be able to focus in on those things to be able to answer questions efficiently. Remember, in any type of analysis, whether troubleshooting or security, we're looking at being cost efficient here because IT, in a lot of ways, is ultimately a cost center. It's overhead on the business. So we have to be able to do the job, do it accurately, and do it quickly. And packet filtering is a key to that. And that's, again, one of the reasons why it's getting its own section and so much focus here. You really have to become proficient with filtering. And I think you'll do that once you understand the basics and just start practicing and using more filters. So with that said, in the rest of the module here, we're going to cover two main types of filters. The first are Berkeley packet filters, also known as BPFs or capture filters, and Wireshark display filters. So with that said, let's get moving.